My husband faked his death for his mistress. I married his enemy and destroyed his life forever. I'm Zora Pierce, the devoted widow who wore black for 2 years. My husband Malcolm died in a tragic car accident. Until the night I walked into an exclusive restaurant and discovered the man who died in that crash was very much alive, very much in love with another woman, and very much not sorry. The story begins with Zora Pierce reflecting on her 2 years of sacrifice and unwavering loyalty to a dead man, only to reveal the ultimate betrayal. Her husband, Malcolm Pierce, orchestrated an elaborate death hoax to escape their marriage and build a new life with his mistress, Kiera Thompson. The introduction establishes the stakes: Zora's stolen years, her financial struggles to save his failing company, and her devotion to his elderly parents, contrasted with Malcolm's chilling justification that allowing her to keep the Pierce name and 2 years of protection before his staged death was payment enough for her service as his wife. The rain had stopped by the time I followed Malcolm outside, my heels clicking against wet pavement like a countdown to detonation. He stood beneath the restaurant's awning, lighting a cigarette with the casual elegance of a man who just ordered dessert, not destroyed a life. Zora. He didn't turn around. I hoped you'd be more discreet. Discreet. The word tasted like poison. You're alive, Malcolm. You've been alive this entire time while you what? Now he faced me, and I barely recognized the cold stranger wearing my husband's face. Played the grieving widow? Enjoyed the sympathy? You got the house, the name, the respect. What more did you want? The truth, I whispered. He laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. The truth is our marriage was transactional, Zora. Your family's political connections for my career advancement. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Then I freed us both. Freed us. My voice cracked despite my determination to remain composed. I gave you the Pierce name, the estate, everything. Consider it payment for your service. He gestured toward the restaurant, where a stunning woman with auburn hair watched us through the glass. That's Kiera Thompson. My real partner. The woman I've always loved. The woman I'd supposedly been honoring was never really mine. The realization hit like a physical blow, but I refused to crumble in front of him. I drove home in a daze, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Malcolm's elderly parents were already asleep when I arrived at the Pierce mansion. They still believed their son was dead, still treasured the framed photo of him I'd placed on the mantel. The lie suffocated me. I locked myself in the study and pulled out 2 years' worth of financial documents, spreadsheets, bank statements, corporate accounts I'd painstakingly rebuilt from near bankruptcy. My MBA hadn't been decoration. I'd saved Pierce Industries while Malcolm's ghost supposedly watched over me. But as I traced transaction after transaction, a darker pattern emerged. Money disappearing into shell companies. Assets transferred to entities registered under a single name. Kiera Thompson. Malcolm hadn't just faked his death and abandoned me. He'd systematically stolen everything I'd built, funneling it to his mistress while I mourned. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was calculated theft, executed with surgical precision over months, maybe years. I sat there until dawn, surrounded by evidence of my own blindness, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in my chest. Not heartbreak. Not anymore. Fury. Leon Edwards appeared at my office door the next morning like a storm given human form, tall, commanding, devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. Malcolm's chief business rival. The man he'd spent years trying to destroy. Mrs. Pierce. His voice was smooth, controlled. We need to talk. I should have called security. Instead, I gestured to the chair across from my desk. About what, Mr. Edwards? About your husband's rather impressive resurrection. He settled into the chair with predatory grace, placing a manila folder between us. I've known for months, Zora. May I call you Zora? My blood ran cold. You knew. I have excellent investigators. They documented everything: the forged death certificate, the bribed coroner, the offshore accounts, Malcolm's new identity, his relationship with Miss Thompson. He opened the folder, revealing photographs, financial records, surveillance images. I could have exposed him any time. Why didn't you? Leon's dark eyes met mine and something flickered there. Something that looked almost like tenderness. Because I wanted you to discover it yourself. To see him for what he truly is. How thoughtful. I said bitterly. I'm not being cruel, Zora. I'm being honest. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. I've admired you for years. Your brilliance, your strategic mind, the way you rebuilt Pierce Industries from ashes while everyone assumed you were just playing executive. You did that alone while grieving a man who didn't deserve a single tear. What do you want, Leon? Marry me. I actually laughed, a short, sharp sound of disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Not for revenge, though that would be a delicious bonus. I want to marry you because you're extraordinary, and Malcolm was too stupid to see it. I'm offering you protection, partnership, and the resources to take back everything he stole. He stood, pulling out a business card with a handwritten number. This is my private line. Call me when you're ready to stop playing victim and start playing to win. He walked out, leaving me staring at the card in my trembling hand, my mind racing with impossible possibilities. Malcolm materialized at the Pierce estate 3 days later, fury radiating from every line of his body. He pushed past me into the foyer like he still owned the place. What the hell do you think you're doing, snooping through my finances? Your finances? I closed the door calmly. You mean the corporate accounts I rebuilt? The investments I secured? The deals I negotiated while you were busy playing dead? Those are complicated business matters you don't understand. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Copies of everything organized chronologically. Shell companies registered to Kiera Thompson. Offshore transfers totaling $3 million. Assets systematically stripped from Pierce Industries and laundered through dummy corporations. Should I continue? Malcolm's face went white, then red. You have no right. I have every right. I'm the widow who saved this company. Or have you forgotten? I smiled without warmth. Tell me, Malcolm. How long were you planning this theft? Before the marriage or after? He abandoned pretense like a snake shedding skin. You should be grateful, Zora. I built Pierce Industries, not you. You were just playing executive with my legacy, pretending you understood business. Everything you touched was mine first. The front door opened, and Kiera glided in wearing a dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. She surveyed me with barely concealed contempt. Still clinging to the widow act? She looped her arm through Malcolm's possessively. It's pathetic, really. Malcolm and I are getting married now that enough time has passed. You should move on. Funny you mentioned that. I kept my voice even, controlled. I'm considering a proposal myself. From Leon Edwards. Malcolm's confident smirk cracked like glass. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? I picked up my phone, my finger hovering over Leon's number. You're still legally married to a dead man, Malcolm. Which means I'm a widow. Free to remarry anyone I choose. I forbid it, Malcolm snarled. I can make your life very difficult, Zora. The courts, the media, your reputation. Try. I pressed dial, holding his gaze as Leon's voice answered. I'm calling to accept your proposal. Malcolm's face transformed into something ugly and desperate, but I was already walking past him, phone to my ear, leaving my old life behind with every step. Leon's penthouse was a study in power and taste. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than the Pierce estate, and an atmosphere of controlled elegance that made Malcolm's posturing seem crude by comparison. Thank you for coming. Leon handed me a glass of wine. His movements deliberate, respectful. Unlike Malcolm's calculated coldness, Leon radiated warmth tempered with authority. I want you to understand exactly what you're agreeing to before we proceed. He spread documents across the glass coffee table, surveillance photos, financial records, legal analyses. Malcolm's death certificate was forged by a coroner he bribed with $50,000. He's been living under his own name for the past year, apparently confident you'd never discover the truth. Kiera Thompson has gambling debts totaling $600,000 that Malcolm's been covering with money stolen from Pierce Industries. How deep does this go? I whispered. Deeper than you know. Malcolm planned to resurface in 18 months as a miracle survivor, claim amnesia, and reclaim Pierce Industries, which you've now made extremely profitable. He was never going to stay dead, Zora. You were always meant to be his placeholder, keeping his empire warm until he decided to return. The betrayal somehow hurt worse knowing it was premeditated. And your proposal? Leon sat across from me, his dark eyes serious. A genuine partnership. I provide legal protection, business leverage, and the full weight of Edwards Global. You bring your strategic brilliance and the Pierce family's social network. Together, we destroy Malcolm's plans and build something better. And the marriage itself? On your terms entirely. His voice softened. If you want this to be purely strategic, I'll respect that. But I won't lie to you, Zora. I've wanted you from the moment I saw you eviscerate a hostile board of directors with nothing but facts and confidence. I'm hoping that over time you might feel something too. But I'll never force it. The honesty was staggering after Malcolm's lies. I studied Leon, truly looked at him, and saw something I'd forgotten existed. Genuine respect. I accept. All of it. I extended my hand. Partnership, marriage, everything. Let's make Malcolm regret the day he decided I wasn't worth keeping. Leon's smile was sharp and beautiful. Then let's begin. The transformation happened faster than I'd imagined possible. 1 month with Leon, and I barely recognized the woman staring back from mirrors in designer boutiques and exclusive restaurants. Leon introduced me to his world like I'd always belonged there. Power dinners where venture capitalists sought my opinion on tech startups. Charity galas where senators asked about my policy perspectives. Strategic sessions where my ideas weren't just heard but celebrated. I remembered who I'd been before Malcolm. Ambitious, creative, formidable. That woman had never really died. She'd just been buried under grief and gaslighting. Leon's legal team worked miracles, untangling Malcolm's fraud thread by thread until the evidence was irrefutable. Pierce Industries would be mine legally, permanently, completely. Everything Malcolm had stolen would return with interest. Meanwhile, cracks appeared in Malcolm's carefully constructed facade. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Kiera's spending had become legendary $100,000 shopping sprees, luxury vacations, a new sports car every month. Without access to Pierce Industries funds, Malcolm was burning through his hidden reserves at an alarming rate. He showed up at my office on a Tuesday afternoon, holding roses and wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Desperation. Zora, I made a mistake. Terrible mistake. Can we talk? We're talking now. I didn't look up from my computer. I mean, really talk. About us. About coming home. The roses trembled slightly in his hands. I want to fix this. Now I met his eyes. There is no this to fix, Malcolm. You're dead, remember? And I've moved on. Moved on. He laughed nervously. To what? Playing house with Leon Edwards. He's using you for revenge against me. I'm marrying Leon Edwards in 2 weeks. I delivered the words like bullets, each one precise and deliberate. The invitations went out yesterday. 500 guests. The Grand Meridian Hotel. It's going to be spectacular. Malcolm's face cycled through disbelief, denial, and rage in rapid succession. You can't. I won't allow. You're dead, Malcolm. Dead men don't get opinions. I returned to my work, dismissing him like he dismissed me outside that restaurant. Please see yourself out. His rage was palpable, filling my office like smoke. But without power, without leverage, without Pierce Industries backing his threats, Malcolm Pierce was just another angry man shouting at the wind. And I was done listening. The Grand Meridian Ballroom had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. 1,000 white roses, crystal chandeliers casting rainbow light across marble floors, and 500 of the city's most powerful people gathered to witness my rebirth. I stood before the mirror in my bridal suite, barely recognizing the goddess staring back. The couture gown fit like it had been painted on, all silk and diamonds and quiet power. This wasn't Malcolm's convenient widow. This was Zora Pierce Edwards. A name that would mean something entirely new. You're breathtaking. Leon appeared behind me, devastating in his tuxedo, his eyes reflecting something that looked remarkably like awe. Ready. More than ready. The ceremony was perfect. Intimate despite the crowd, genuine despite the strategic underpinnings. When Leon kissed me, sealing our alliance in something that felt dangerously like love, the applause was thunderous. At the reception, I spotted Malcolm immediately. He'd secured an invitation through a business acquaintance, arriving with Kiera dripping in borrowed diamonds and desperation. He looked diminished somehow, smaller in this room full of people who'd once feared him. Leon's toast was a masterpiece of subtle warfare. To my brilliant wife, who rose from the ashes when others tried to bury her. Here's to those who underestimate brilliant women. May they learn their lesson before it's too late. He raised his glass, his smile sharp as a blade. And may we always remember that true power lies not in deception, but in integrity. Every eye in the room understood the message. Malcolm's face turned purple. He tried to approach us during dinner, but Leon's security materialized from nowhere. Polite, professional, immovable. Leon himself walked over. His posture relaxed but his voice carrying absolute authority. Mr. Pierce. Or should I say Mr. Ghost? Leon's smile didn't reach his eyes. My wife is under my protection now. Any further harassment will result in legal consequences, including prosecution for fraud, identity theft, and faking your death. I have prosecutors on speed dial. Test me. Malcolm was escorted out, Kiera trailing behind him like a disappointed shadow, while 500 guests pretended not to notice the spectacle. I felt nothing watching him go. Not satisfaction, not pity. Just the quiet peace of a door finally closing on a chapter that should have ended years ago. The unraveling happened faster than even Leon predicted. Within weeks of the wedding, Malcolm's carefully constructed life began collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. Kiera's gambling debts surfaced publicly when a loan shark, tired of waiting for payment, sold the story to tabloids. Suddenly, everyone knew that the mysterious Kay Thompson, linked to Malcolm Pierce's financial irregularities, was a woman with six-figure debts to Vegas casinos and online poker sites. Debt collectors started appearing at Malcolm's modest apartment, a far cry from the Pierce estate's gated security. Malcolm's parents learned the truth when investigative journalists contacted them for comment on the fake death scandal. His mother collapsed from shock. His father immediately disowned him, issuing a public statement denouncing his son's moral bankruptcy and criminal deception. Every business venture Malcolm touched turned toxic. The strategic partnerships, investor relationships, and client networks he thought he'd built were revealed to be Zora's work all along. Without her quiet brilliance managing relationships and strategy, deals fell apart, investors pulled funding, and clients fled to competitors. Many to Edwards Global, where I personally welcomed them. Malcolm attempted to reclaim Pierce Industries through legal action, claiming I'd taken advantage of his temporary absence to steal his company. Leon's attorneys destroyed the case in 3 hours, presenting irrefutable evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and premeditated theft. The judge didn't just dismiss Malcolm's suit. She referred him for criminal prosecution. Media outlets, receiving anonymous tips from sources that suspiciously resembled Leon's PR team, ran daily exposés. The man who faked his death. Corporate executives' elaborate fraud. The Pierce deception scandal. Malcolm became a pariah, his name synonymous with betrayal and greed. Kiera left on a Tuesday morning, her belongings already packed, her eyes cold and calculating. You're useless now, she told him, according to the neighbor who overheard. I don't date broke men. She appeared in tabloids the following week, attached to an oil tycoon twice her age, wearing diamonds Malcolm could never have afforded even in his prime. Malcolm Pierce, who'd once commanded boardrooms and social circles, was left alone in a studio apartment with mounting legal bills, and no one left to blame but himself. Malcolm showed up at Edwards Global on a gray Thursday morning, looking like a man who'd aged a decade in months. Security called up immediately, and Leon personally met him in the lobby, calm, authoritative, every inch the conqueror. I need to speak with Zora. Malcolm's voice cracked with desperation. Please. I need closure. To apologize. Leon studied him with the clinical interest of a scientist examining an insect. You want closure? Or you want something from her? I need to talk to her. 5 minutes. Leon pulled out his phone, texted me, then gestured toward the elevator. 5 minutes. My office. With me present. And Malcolm? If you upset her, security will remove you in pieces. I arrived to find Malcolm sitting in the chair where he'd probably imagined himself dozens of times, but as a conquered guest, not a conqueror. He looked up when I entered, and something in his expression tried to mimic remorse. Zora, thank you for seeing me. I settled beside Leon, our shoulders touching, a unified front. You have 5 minutes. I'm sorry. For everything. I know I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I did care about you. Our marriage meant something, even if I lost sight of that. His eyes pleaded for forgiveness, for mercy, for anything that would ease his obvious suffering. I was wrong. About everything. Can you forgive me? I let him finish, watching him perform contrition like a man who'd rehearsed in mirrors. Then I opened the folder Leon handed me. You started planning your fake death 14 months before the accident. Here's your browser history researching death fraud, false documentation, how to fake vehicle fires. I slid documents across Leon's desk. You deliberately isolated me from my career contacts, making me dependent on the Pierce name and your approval. Here are the emails where you sabotaged my job interviews behind my back. Malcolm's face went white. You drained the medical fund I'd established for your parents' care, $200,000 that was supposed to ensure their comfort. You spent it on Kiara's gambling debts. I kept my voice even, clinical. You didn't make mistakes, Malcolm. You executed a calculated plan to use me, discard me, and rob me. The only thing you miscalculated was that I'd be smart enough to survive it. I don't hate you, I continued, standing. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend on better things. I pity you, because you destroyed your life chasing shallow desires and never realized what you had until it was gone. Malcolm broke then, actually broke, his careful facade crumbling into genuine despair. But I was already walking toward the door, Leon beside me, neither of us looking back. Some endings don't require forgiveness. Just closure. 6 months painted a portrait of perfect reversal. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, Chief Strategy Officer of Pierce Edwards Global, the empire Leon and I had built by merging our companies into something greater than their parts. Below, the city glittered with possibility, every light a reminder of how far I'd come from that grieving widow in black. Leon appeared behind me, sliding his arms around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. Ready for the gala? Almost. I leaned into his warmth, still marveling at how naturally affection came with someone who valued me. I was just thinking about how Malcolm's probably finishing his shift at that call center right now, living in his studio apartment, dodging process servers from his third lawsuit. I turned in Leon's arms, seeing my reflection in his dark eyes, powerful, confident, loved. And how I don't feel anything about it anymore. Good. He kissed my forehead. He doesn't deserve your thoughts. We'd restored Malcolm's parents' finances, my idea, executed quietly through a trust fund they believed came from insurance settlements. They deserved comfort in their final years, regardless of their son's crimes. I'd reconnected with my own family, who'd apologized profusely for pressuring me into that strategic marriage with Malcolm all those years ago. Kiara surfaced occasionally in tabloid photos, always attached to different wealthy men, her beauty fading at the edges like flowers past their prime. A reminder of the shallow life Malcolm had chosen and lost. The restraining orders kept Malcolm away, though he tried contacting me twice through lawyers, both times seeking financial help with his mounting legal bills. Both times, Leon's attorneys had shut it down with clinical efficiency. At tonight's gala, a charity event for women entrepreneurs that I'd organized, I moved through crowds of admirers and peers as Zora Pierce Edwards, not Malcolm's widow but Leon's equal partner, a woman who'd transformed betrayal into triumph, victimhood into power. I caught my reflection in a champagne flute, radiant in crimson silk, diamonds at my throat, Leon's hand warm at my back, and smiled at the woman staring back. She wasn't cherished because she was convenient. She was celebrated because she was brilliant. She wasn't used, she was valued. And in building a life where she was seen, respected, and loved for exactly who she was, she'd found something better than revenge. Complete and utter happiness.